Loren Furman. It's my pleasure to introduce Loren Furman. Loren joined the Colorado Chamber in January 2008 and serves as a chief lobbyist at the state capitol. Loren oversees staffing and operations of the Colorado Chamber lobbying team and manages these three issues for the council: government affairs, tax and labor, and employment. Loren also serves as a spokesperson on press and media inquiries. Lawrence previous served as legislative director for Colorado Department of Personnel and Administration and worked with the governor's office and General Assembly on state workforce issues. Um, Loren has a great resume here, and instead of me reading it all, I'm going to save some and let Loren tell you about Loren. And tell you better about herself than I can. And I'm just reading it from a paper, but she has this all memorized because it's her. So
You're so kind. I appreciate it. Well, I'm not going to bore everyone to tears about my background.
your background is pretty spectacular, so it won't be boring.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Super quick. I mean, I've been doing this type of job in government affairs and for about, I just counted recently, 21 years. This will be my 21st legislative session. I'm originally from Florida and actually Key West, where I grew up, and spent many years working in Tallahassee, Florida. And I'm a Florida State Seminole. If we have any Seminoles out there, and if anybody has been to Tallahassee, you'll know why I now live in Colorado. It is not the prettiest place to live and work, and we really started. My husband and I started all over in politics here in Colorado. So we started that in 2005. And so I worked for the Department of Personnel and Administration as their legislative liaison / lobbyist. And then I got hired for the Colorado Chamber of Commerce, where I am now. And this will be my 13th year of working for the Colorado Chamber of Commerce. And I will tell you, the one thing that I am so grateful about this role and what we do is working with folks like you and partnering with our local chambers of commerce and building what I like to say is an army across the state. And that's, I just want to say how much I appreciate this opportunity today. I appreciate the partnership that the Commerce City Chamber now has with the Colorado Chamber of Commerce. And I think that's so critical. And when I was talking to Deborah, it seemed so obvious to me that this partnership needed to happen. And we want to be a resource to all of you. And I want to help answer any questions that you have about what we do, what your organization can do, how we work together. So I'm going to try not to bore you too much, but I sent over a PowerPoint. It's very, very short, but I always think it's helpful to give you a little bit of background about who we are. And then I'm going to get into some of the legislation that we're going to see this session. And then I want to help answer any questions on that legislation and how we can work together going forward. So the Colorado Chamber was created back in 1965, and it was created when the Colorado Association of Manufacturing and the Commerce and Industry merged. So we've been around for over 50 years. Our representation is several hundred businesses across the state, and it's all sizes of businesses. So under our hood, we have almost 42 local chambers of commerce that are our members. And then we have 40 trade associations. And then we have all of the independent businesses, large, medium, and small. So you can only imagine that there's so many different types of industries that we are talking to and trying to support and help, just like your organization. So what we try to do, really our primary role as an organization is to be a voice at the Capitol on behalf of businesses, based on all of those businesses I just described to you that we try to help and represent. And so we work with public officials across the state. We work with all the legislative members across the state. We work with the staff. We work with the governor. And really what we try to do is explain to them, how the decisions that they make, whether they're political decisions or whether they're policy related decisions, how do they impact businesses across the state? Quite simply, our mission: maintain and improve the cost of doing business in the state, strengthen our critical infrastructure, so anything relating to roads, bridges, water, try to advocate for a pro-business state government. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how we do that later on, but it involves really working closely with helping to elect pro-business legislators, and then supporting and increasing educated and skilled workers across the state. So what do I do all day? I get that question a lot. So I lead up our state and our federal advocacy team. What does that mean? We have a team, myself and 2 other lobbyists that represent the Colorado Chamber. And we work with all of those folks that I just mentioned, not only at the state capitol, but outside of the state capitol and outside of the legislative session. And there are times that these state leaders, they just need more education about how a business operates. A lot of them have never signed the bottom of a paycheck. A lot of them have never been part of a business or owned a business. So we try to provide persuasive arguments as to why a piece of legislation that they plan to introduce, what does it do? How does it impact your members, our members? And try to help them understand that sometimes a bill that they introduce may not be the right approach, and how can we work together to make that bill a process that can work for businesses across the state. And so we do that by coalescing our members, making sure our members have their voices heard by contacting legislators through emails, phone calls, social media, things like that. Anything that we can get that message out is really, really critical. On the political front, we have a very robust legislative candidate interview process, which we do every election cycle. We interview every single candidate that wants to be a legislator. And you can only imagine how exhausting that can be. But we do that over a 4-day period with back-to-back interviews. Our members all participate in that process. It's a very democratic process. And so the Commerce City Chamber, if you'd like to participate in that and help us interview these candidates, once we interview them, we vote to decide whether or not we're going to endorse them and whether they will get a contribution from us. And then we put out publicly our endorsements through the press. I always think it's important to touch on the politics, because the politics are what drives what happens down at the state capitol. There is no balance right now at the state capitol. And that may sound partisan in one way or the other, and some folks get a bit sensitive when I say that. We as the Colorado Chamber believe in balance. We don't necessarily believe that it's always helpful to have one party in control of everything. And right now, there's only one party controlling everything. So in the House of Representatives, there's a split, 41 Democrats, 24 Republicans. In the state Senate, 20 Democrats, 15 Republicans. Our governor, obviously, a Democrat, Jared Polis. So what happens is when you have one party controlling everything, unlike in prior years when we did have a split legislature, there really isn't anything forcing legislators to come to the table and work to find a compromise. And in the past, if a bill was too controversial or if they just didn't have their votes to get it passed, it would die. So that really forced both sides to talk to each other. But now we don't have that. And so it's a little bit more of a difficult environment for businesses right now. What does the next session look like? So the next session is supposed to start February 16th. It will be a regular session, hopefully. A lot of us are exhausted already. We've had literally 4 legislative sessions in 1 year. So if you think about that, we had a regular 2020 session, which started in January of last year. That was temporarily recessed, rightfully so, because of the pandemic. Then we had a 3-week whirlwind return of the legislature in May, which went until about the second week of June. Then we had a special session in November for 1 week. And then we just had a 3-day legislative session just the first week of January. So what happens when we have these multiple legislative sessions is there's very little time for legislators to prepare and get enough information and research in advance. And it has given them a bit of a platform to introduce and pass bills very, very quickly. And this could be a problem if the legislature comes in on the 16th, like it plans to do, and if it stops and starts again, like it has over the last 10 months. So if they do decide to meet on the 16th and they decide to push forward with a regular session, assuming there are no COVID outbreaks down at the Capitol, God help us if that happens, but they have 117 days left to convene, and that's in accordance with the Constitution right now. They can introduce upwards of 700 to 900 different bills every session. And some people don't realize this, but the Constitution requires that every one of those bills gets a hearing. So there's no opportunity for a bill to never see the light of day. It has to have a hearing. It has to go to a committee and be heard. So you can imagine, 700, 800, 900 new laws. Nobody thinks we need that many laws, but you still have to have the bills heard and vote on them by the legislature. So I want to get into a little bit of the bills we are anticipating will come, but let me just pause right there. I've talked a little bit about a couple different things. And then we'll go into some of the policy issues, legislation we're going to see, and then I'll answer questions on that too. Any comments?
Does anyone have any questions for her as so far as what she's gone through? If anybody does, when you do, please introduce yourself and tell her what business you're with. We're going to introduce ourselves anyway, but if it comes up beforehand, introduce yourself and let her know what the business you are with before you ask the question. Thank you. Go ahead, Loren.
Great, thank you. So let's get into the bills we're going to see. And this is not an exhaustive list. I'm just highlighting a couple of things that I thought would be of interest to the chamber. And if folks have heard about other things, we probably have heard of other bills too, and I'm happy to try to address those. So I'll start with tax credits and exemptions. A lot of your businesses are allowed to take certain sales and use tax exemptions. And many of those are in statute right now. And what happened during the regular 2020 session was a piece of legislation that tried to eliminate about 5 different current tax credits and exemptions. The most controversial one is the energy exemption. That is an exemption that businesses get if they manufacture a product. And the legislature has examined this tax exemption and said, wow, if we get rid of this, we can generate a whole lot of revenue for the state to use how we want. So those were the types of things that were considered in House Bill 1420 during the regular 2020 session. I anticipate a bill like that to come back. And we have already heard which sponsors are going to carry a bill like this and some of the issues that are some of the tax credits and exemptions that are being considered either to be on the chopping block or at least modified. And some are also focused on the oil and gas industry and the coal industry. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that after I get through this list. I anticipate there will be legislation addressing independent contractors and the definition of an independent contractor. So a lot of legislators have been interested in seeing some kind of portable benefits for gig workers, whether it's healthcare benefits, workers' comp benefits, unemployment insurance benefits. So there could be a bill that could provide something or some change around an independent contractor and deviate from the traditional definitions in law for an independent contractor. Transportation funding. again, I think this is a huge issue that impacts every chamber of commerce, and your members, because most of companies are delivering a widget from one part of the state to the other, or employees are trying to get from one part of the state to the other. So having roads and bridges that are operational is really important, obviously, to all of us. So we've seen past bills that have failed to provide more funding for transportation projects, but there will be another bill introduced this year. It will be sponsored by Senator Faith Winter and Representative Matt Gray, and they are looking at more funding for transit. There's also an interest in trying to change or increase the gas tax to provide more funding. Also, maybe taxing those third-party delivery services like Uber and Lyft and the trucking industry, all to generate more funding for transportation. Family medical leave, there was a big push over the last 6 years to get legislation that would create a paid family and medical leave program by the state. The bill failed for 6 years, so the proponents went to the ballot and they got a ballot initiative passed in 2020, just last year. So there will be a bill that only addresses the funding of that program for the family leave program, because the Department of Labor needs $1.5 million just to start this program to provide family leave benefits between employers and employees. And they would be the ones that would the Department of Labor would be the ones to administer that program. A workers' comp bill, potentially. So if a worker believed that they got COVID on the job, this bill could require an employer to automatically provide workers' comp benefits to that employee. Another bill saying moving away from traditional energy sources and requiring that customers across the state, residents, replace their natural gas stoves with appliances that are electric based. You can imagine that this is going to cause concerns for folks like the realtors, home builders, anybody that is dealing with trying to sell a home to a home buyer and having to change out those types of appliances. So that's raising a whole lot of concerns from some of our members. Some of the last couple bills to talk about really relate to small business relief regarding COVID. So immunity for businesses if a worker tries to sue that business and claim that they got COVID on the job. Another bill that says you have to treat one business as the same as another business under our public health orders, because some of the legislators have gotten a lot of feedback in their districts about maybe you have one large hardware store that can operate because they're a larger space, but yet a smaller store has to shut down because they're not as big. And so those are things that I think your members will care about. And then we'll likely see some more legislation regarding evictions and debt due to the COVID pandemic. So just to close out, I would just say, and I'll answer whatever questions you have. Again, like I said at the beginning, our partnership is just so critical, and having your voice, whether it's down there at the Capitol to help testify in a bill, reaching out to legislators on a bill, through social media, through emails, through phone calls. They need to hear from you and your members. And when I go down there, they see me down there at the Capitol every day. They want to hear from actual businesses too, and the people that are in their districts. And so that kind of effort matters. And you can work with us however you want to work with us. We provide any resources that you need. So if you said, Loren, we have no idea what this bill means. Can you just explain it, or can you send me some talking points on what it says? Absolutely. We do that all the time. And we also provide a lot of information once a week to our entire membership called our Capitol Report. And that gives an update on all the different things that we're working on. And a lot of it is either legislative or it's regulatory. And again, they are things that will impact your members. So with that, I will stop talking and answer any other questions you have.
I have a question on that gas bill, changing from natural gas or gas stoves to electric. Who is pushing that? I mean, what major industry is pushing that? Because even if you go to electric, gas runs electric plants and everything. So it seems like it's a bill. Well, I won't even tell you what I think about it, but who is pushing that?
So it's a combination of legislators who believe strongly in the state moving away from traditional energy sources like oil and natural gas. Combination of them, a combination of consumer groups, and very environmentally driven groups, interest groups that are out there that push things like this. And I'm not going to say today that something like this will pass, but what it will try to do, it'll end up being is like, well, let's study how we can move towards eliminating any kind of natural gas products, stoves being one of them. So it may not be a mandate this year, but it certainly is starting a conversation about how do we progress to this. And that's what scares a lot of people is, okay, we don't even want to go down this road. Why are you even going down this road? But I can assure you that this is going to have a lot of controversy and a lot of opposition. And it doesn't mean that it will pass the way that it's proposed, but it's certainly going to come up. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, it does, but it's
You got it.
and the devious part of this bill is okay. Never mind. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question too.
Sure, Paul. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Loren. I'm Paul Williams. CMIT Solutions is my business, IT provider for businesses.
Great.
My question's more around, I don't know, the independent contractor topic. You briefly discussed a couple items there, but I don't know if I got all that. And I was just curious about, maybe the intention of those changes or whatever those changes might be. Whether it's something that is or is intended to motivate or demotivate an independent contractor or the business to employ independent contractors.
So if I'm following your question, you're trying to kind of figure out what's the motivation behind any change to a definition. Yeah. Motivation is there are folks down at the Capitol, legislators that believe there aren't enough benefits being provided to independent contractors. And even some independent contractors don't want to be viewed as traditional workers, right? But there are some that do. So there's this debate, and it happened in California recently, about how do we make independent contractors look more like traditional workers and provide them the benefits that traditional workers get.
Yeah, this is the gig related stuff. I didn't even think of that just because I do have independent contractors.
Sure.
One's kind of a gig guy. The other's just, a contractor that we're trying to make a decision on employment down the line, right? So.
Right, and I haven't seen a bill draft yet. There is an Office of the Future of Work that is located within the Department of Labor and Employment, and they put out a report, and then they're on independent contractors and on the current definition of an independent contractor. They did not make any recommendations for legislative changes, but that doesn't mean that a legislator couldn't do it on their own and introduce a bill. So until we see what the bill is going to look like, I can't react to it yet, and neither can any of you. But I can tell you that the folks at Uber and Lyft, they're very, very involved in this and trying to keep a very close eye on what's happening, and to see if there is a way to work with these legislators on what they're just conceptually considering.
Yeah, that's a fine line.
It is. It's a
I-
very fine line. And there are,
you know,
yeah, independent contractors, just so you know, are defined in 3 different areas of statute. So once you start fiddling with those definitions, it gets really scary.
yeah,
So hopefully that helps, Paul, but happy to talk offline if you want more information.
yeah. Well, I'm very curious about it. That's for sure. And I certainly, that's why I just wondered, like you said, there's 3 different definitions, and I'm not actually aware of each of those.
Sure.
I kind of read what you said there as kind of levels of contract engagement.
Yes.
You know, whereas, you know, someone who is an Uber driver, you know, that wants to work independently, I don't know how you define it, versus someone who's, you know, not quite full time but getting a higher rate. You know, situation similar to mine. So I don't know. It's interesting.
There's, just not to bore you to tears, but there's 12 different steps, criteria for identifying an independent contractor. A lot has to do with certain uniforms, hours, wages, things like that are all
Sure.
in statute.
Okay. Well, thank you, Loren.
No problem. You bet.
Loren, I have a question.
Sure. Hi, Rob.
Rob Santoro, I work for Culligan Water in Denver.
Yep.
Question I have is, how do I, if I'm interested in becoming a lobbyist, how do I do that?
That's a loaded question. Well, you have to get a client, first of all, and somebody to pay you. But to become a lobbyist is a very small profession, I guess I would say. I kind of compare it to working on Wall Street. It's nobody really understands really what we do. And it moves very fast. But to become a lobbyist, it's very simple too. You can register with the Secretary of State. You pay $25 to be a registered lobbyist. And like I was joking, but half joking, you do have to kind of represent an interest group, a client. And then you have to register once a month. You have to register how much revenue you're bringing in on behalf of that client and what issues you're lobbying on behalf of that client to the Secretary of State.
Okay, seems easy enough.
It is. It's the client part that's the hard part.
Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Sure. Deborah.
For us that are working with admin at the Chamber, June, myself and Renee, we're excited to partner with the Colorado Chamber of Commerce, and they will be sending a capital report to all of our members once a week once we get that set up. So I just wanted everyone to know about that. I think this is going to be a good benefit for all of our members.
Thank you, Deborah.
Are there any other questions for Loren? Okay, if there aren't any other questions, the other members that have not asked questions, would you just come on and introduce yourself and tell what business you're with so we can give Loren an idea of some of the members of our chamber? Let me go to my gallery view, and I'll start with Blake.
Well, my name is Blake Kennedy. I'm with Ant Credit Union. I'm a business developer, and ultimately what I try to do is connect our institution with other businesses, organizations, and communities within Colorado to bring financial education to them.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Good to meet you.
Thank you, Lon. Thank you for your
Danny?
presentation.
Of course.
Danny, you're next. Unmute.
Okay, I'm sorry. My name is Danny Danko Holloway, and I am with the Hideaway Saloon. We took over the Hideaway Saloon June of 2018, so kind of new, and it's been an interesting year with COVID, but the Hideaway Saloon, I believe, is the oldest bar in Commerce City. I think it opened in 1942.
Wow. And Danny, just so you know, one of our other members is the Colorado Restaurant Association. Are you also a member of theirs too?
No, but I should be, I think.
Yeah, I mean, based on what you've gone through over the last 10 months. They try to help businesses like yours.
And it's the Colorado Restaurant Association.
Correct.
I will definitely give them a call. Thank you for that.
You bet.
Taylor?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Taylor Baumg. I'm with Transworld Business Advisors. We're a business brokerage here in Denver. So essentially what I do is help small to medium-sized business owners find a buyer for those businesses, and also talk with people looking to find new opportunities in the business world and get them put into a business themselves. So this is my first time actually joining you guys here and in one of these groups. So I definitely appreciate the invite. And Loren, thanks for all that information. That was awesome to hear.
Thanks, Taylor. Keep bringing in good businesses here.
Absolutely, that's the goal.
Carrie?
I am Carrie Packard. I am the Director of Development at the Stout Street Foundation. We are a long-term substance use disorder treatment center. And I work with outreach, community engagement, and fundraising. So we are a nonprofit, so I have a limited bit of lobbying, but we want to make sure that our legislators are aware of the substance use disorder challenges, especially in light of the pandemic.
Absolutely. And you've got some good partners down at the state capitol too that are helping in that effort. So thank you.
And Carrie, that behind your head, the wood, I see that every now and then on TV on another show. So that's very familiar to me. And I was thinking, I've seen that before. But
I'm hiding out in Kyle Clark's basement.
Okay. Casey.
Hi, my name is Casey Mock. I'm also with Ent Credit Union. I work with Blake in Northern Colorado, doing business development and just trying to make connections in the Northern Colorado market.
Wonderful. Thank you, Casey.
Heather?
Hello, I am Heather LaCrue, and I am the current president of the Commerce City Chamber, and I work for Community Choice Credit Union in core Commerce City, and I do marketing, business development, a little bit of everything really. We're a smaller credit union, so we all kind of just do everything. But those are my two basic titles, is business development and marketing. And I'm from Commerce City, born and raised, so I just have a great passion for our community and helping as much as I can.
That's awesome. Are you related, Heather, to Matthew LaCrue?
I am. He is our cousin.
Yeah. I work with Matthew a lot on some issues.
He's pretty awesome.
He is.
Paige. You're muted, Paige.
I guess I need one of those mugs. How are you? I'm Paige Black, and I'm a sales consultant for Signarama. And we're based out of Brighton, but I live in Denver, so I cover anywhere. So I'm just here to help facilitate in any way I can. I can make any sign and help promote businesses and let them know, hey, we're still open. Anything that you need to have communicated, we're here to help. Thank you for having me. This is my first time in one of these meetings, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to do Paul and Rob again. Paul?
June needs to introduce herself.
Okay, I'm going to get there. Okay, Paul must be stepped away. Rob, introduction again.
Oh, yep, Rob Santoro, Culligan Water, longtime member of the chamber. Thanks.
Good to meet you, Rob.
June.
Well, I introduced myself before everything started, but my name is June Younger. I'm the chamber coordinator, and I'm just glad everyone could be here today.
Thank you. And I'm Renee Bullock, Executive Director of the Commerce City Chamber of Commerce, not Colorado, Commerce City. And that's it. And Paul, if you'd like to introduce yourself one more time.
One more time. Wow, that's special. Yeah, Paul Williams, Team IT Solutions. I'll just use the tagline, we worry about IT so you don't have to, serving small and medium-sized businesses, helping them get through, cybersecurity issues, challenges with IT support, and items such as that.
Paul, I would just mention it wasn't one of the bills I brought up because it's pretty complex, but there will be some kind of data privacy legislation that is going to impact probably your business. So we should keep in touch.
Yeah, no, well, and of course, following California's, what they've implemented is, we were kind of, I'm part of a franchise system, so a lot of that talk goes on across our network on a continual basis about, oh, this is coming, or okay, not here, but maybe here, and here. So
Great.
Thank you, though. Yeah, you bet.
Good to meet you.
Deborah, do you want to introduce yourself? You just muted yourself. Okay.
I'm Deborah Bullock, and I work with admin with the Chamber, but I also represent the Chamber through the Commerce City Historical Society. That's where our membership is.
Loren, I wanted to ask you about another, and I've been hearing it a lot on the news about Canadian pharmacy products and the drug affordability board, all this that's coming down the pipe. You just explained what's going to happen with Canadian pharmacy products and the drug affordability board.
You got it. So last year, a bill passed that created the importation program, the Colorado importation program, which allows us to work with Canada to import certain drugs. I will tell you that that program is not necessarily moving fast, but it is in place. The Department of Public Health and Environment is working with Canada and trying to figure out what drugs that Colorado would be selling at what prices, which companies that they would be working with to distribute those drugs. So there's still a long ways to go, but what I can tell you too, that there's already a bill being considered to add more countries to that program. So not just Canada, but there may be other countries that that Colorado would partner with for importation of drugs. On the drug affordability board issue, so what this would do is a bill is being considered, and it definitely is going to be introduced, that would create a board, and the board members would meet and basically review certain drugs and decide whether or not they believe that those drugs are priced accordingly, I guess, to what they believe they should be priced to. You can only imagine the anxiety that this probably creates for certain pharmaceutical companies. And there will be a lot of opposition to this affordability board bill. And there probably will be opposition to expanding the importation program too, since the Canadian importation program hasn't really gotten off hasn't really progressed very fast.
When you were speaking about COVID and a bill coming forth where people talking about they got COVID from work, how do they prove that that they got COVID from work? And then it's a community disease that goes out through every place. You could get it from the grocery store. You could get it. Where's the burden of proof? Is it on the employer or is it on the employee?
It's on the employer.
Wow.
So the bill was introduced last session, the end of last session, when they came back, the legislature came back after a recess, and they introduced that bill and it died. And it was because of those reasons, Renee. It was because it did not include any language as to how a worker would prove that they got COVID on the job, and the burden of proof would be on the employer, and the employer would have to prove that they had conducted all of the steps to protect that employee from getting COVID, but you raised the exact point that businesses raised is you could get it anywhere. So even if a business had done everything it possibly could do and followed all the public health orders and every requirement, that doesn't mean that that worker still couldn't have gotten the disease. So this will be a very controversial bill if it's introduced again.
Loren, I have a quick question, and this is just regards to what is going to be considered as a critical business going forward. I know there are more businesses that are being added to that list, whether it be dog sitting for frontline workers, all that kind of stuff. But do you know what the guidelines are, or how that's going to go as far as what a critical business is going to be?
It's interesting you say that, Taylor, because I have not seen any public health orders modified to change which essential businesses or critical business are named in those public health orders. Did you see that in the press, or is that, did you get
I didn't. I was actually just talking to one of my sellers, and she said that she just got moved to I don't know if it's critical, maybe it's one step down from that, but she is allowed to stay open so those frontline workers and first responders, can bring their dogs in and go to work, which I thought was interesting. I didn't know if that was in a bill or anything along those lines, or if it was just kind of loosened.
I haven't heard that they had been included under the, I don't even want to call it a definition because it's a public health order. It's not a regulation or a statute, but I haven't heard that they've actually expanded it beyond the essential workers that they listed in the original ones. But it may be that the department is probably being very flexible for some of those businesses that are calling them and saying, hey, is it okay if, we allow these pets to be brought? Makes sense to me.
Okay. Appreciate it.
You bet. A lot of the controversy now regarding essential businesses is around the vaccine. When do essential workers get the vaccine, and who is going to be first after we get through the 70 plus Coloradans and then 65 plus, and then it's going to go to essential workers. Any other questions I can help answer?
Go ahead, Danny.
So can an employer mandate that your employees get the shot?
No. Not under any state law right now or any federal law has there been a mandate for vaccination. And that is so politically difficult to do. You will have both sides of the aisle, Republicans, Democrats, who will fight something like that. Because it's a matter of choice. It's,
I'm just starting to hear some chatter about people saying that starting to hear chatter about people getting told that they have to get it, and then having our business. I think that it's probably imperative that that we wish that they would get it.
Sure.
And so that's good to know.
Yep, I've heard it too, Danny. I've heard it too, but it's not a law. It's not a requirement. It's not a federal law yet. It doesn't mean that somebody couldn't attempt to pass something.
Push it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Thank
it's
you.
very controversial. You bet.
I have heard of a couple of airlines that are going to mandate their employees to get it, and the unions are discussing it with them now. But basically, the unions are going to tell the employees, if you want to keep your job, if they say you have to get it, this is what you have to do, because we are around everybody every day. And so I'm wondering how that's going to flesh out and what's going to happen with that. Do you have any ideals, or are you just saying, are you going to sit back and just see what happens?
I've heard the same thing, Renee. And, sure, a business, I suppose, could say that without a law or federal or state law, say, okay, if you want to work for us, then you got to take the vaccine. And it'll be the choice of the worker whether they want to or not. keep their job or if they want to go someplace else. I think I have heard the same thing about the airline industry, but I think that's a really touchy situation. But they certainly, on their own, they can certainly do that. I don't see other types of industries necessarily jumping on the bandwagon to do that yet.
Are there any other questions for Loren? Okay, well, seeing none, we want to thank you, Loren, for this presentation, and we're definitely going to invite you back as soon into the session and everything, and hoping it isn't start and stop like it was last year. But that's one group that should be taking the shots so they can keep on working that 120 days to get the business of the state done. So everyone, thank you, Loren, so much for joining us today, and you definitely will be welcome back in the session.
Thank you so much. It's good to meet everyone. And my contact information looks like Deborah June put that in the chat. Don't hesitate to call me. If there's anything I can help you with, I'm happy to. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye now.
This is June, and I'm going to share the last thing of Loren's PowerPoint that has her contact information. So if you need that help, sorry about that. It's going farther than what it's supposed to.
Okay, everybody write that down. I can't read the stuff in the blue, but I got the phone number.
All right.
Well, are there any questions from the chamber members to the chamber? Well, I want to thank everybody for signing on today and coming to this lunch and learn. This was very educational for me, and they have a legislative meeting every month that I go to and sign on and listen to what's happening with the Colorado Chamber. And if anything comes back that is going to affect any of our membership, I will be sure to make sure it gets out to our membership. But as it goes now, it's a good resource for our chamber to be in the Colorado Chamber of Commerce, because they're not only lobbying for the businesses that are out there, they're lobbying for us also as a chamber. So thank you. And if there aren't any further questions, have a great day today. And thank you for being with us on this lunch hour.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Soon.